Hi, it's Kylie Cool. Welcome to my studio and welcome to another Wednesday project video. So what I want to do today is another kind of little book, sketchbook, journal, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to be using a large A2 size sheet of paper. So it's a little bit hard to get in here. I've also got a layer of newsprint down there, just by way of background. So A2 is roughly 23.5 inches by 16.5 inches, so it just gives you an idea of size. But I am going to do it on a smaller sheet of paper again, as I did with my little book last week. I'm going to do a style today that seems to be commonly referred to as, sorry, focusing going wrong there, let me put something down, anything. It seems to be commonly referred to as a zine style. Now, to me it's not a zine style, as a zine is a piece of self-published work, magazine type, booklet, whatever, that you would distribute, whereas what some people are calling as zine style is really just a means of folding one sheet of paper into a little booklet. It's not a zine per se. But that's getting a bit pedantic, so we'll avoid that now. But it is just about taking one sheet of paper and making it into a book of some description. Now again with this, you could use any sort of supplies. And I will use a variety today, as I did with last week's video when I did the meander journal thing. I'm going to cover the paper first, but I'm going to use some slightly different techniques this week that I hope you might find of interest, and then we'll fold it into the book. And I will do it on a smaller sheet of paper again, just to show you step by step. Now, I see a lot of people just now doing the kind of grid journaling, you know, where they're dividing things up and you just work across the masking tape and you get all these little nice rows of images, or you can do it on a large sheet of paper, you know, then cut it up and you get nice little square or rectangle images or etc. And that's quite an old technique, good especially for, I would say, abstracted art, but that you can look at composition, etc., and things, you know, hone in on things that you might like. I'm going to do something similar in terms of I'm going to use masking tape, but it's not with the end result of nice little squares. This is a bit more random. So you will need either masking tape or some washi tape. This stuff is quite sticky, and because I'm not going to gesso the paper, it can lift it a little bit and it can leave a sticky residue. So I'm just going to put this over my jeans. Not that you'll see that, but I'm just going to try and take some of the stickiness off the background by sticking it onto my old paint jeans. So I've got that done pretty randomly. Some crisscross each other, some go right off the edge, some stop in the middle. I just want a selection. Some are going to create some interesting angles. So that's that. I'm also going to do an A4 size sheet of paper, just because it might be easier to demonstrate cutting that up. So let me get the A4 size sheet. So A4 measures roughly 11.25 by something like 8.5. It's basic. Four of these would actually, so 4 A2 would make, sorry, 4 A4 would make an A2 size of paper. But it's roughly, for this country and many countries, it's a kind of letter size. So what I'm going to do now is to take an oil pastel. You can use anything that's sort of waxy, so a basic Crayola crayon or even a candle. But I'm just going to take this, I'm taking it in white, and I'm just going to do some lines across the page. Again, just kind of letting the flow. These are just the portfolio ones. I find the woodies to be quite waxy. These are water soluble, as are these, but these tend to dissolve more than these do, I've found. But you know, use whatever you've got, and if you've got an old candle, that would do. If you don't have this sort of thing, you don't need to use it. It just adds a layer. And all I'm going to do is move this around, doesn't matter where, so I'm doing it on there. So on my next layer, I'm going to use some acrylic inks, but on this layer you could use anything. You could use watercolours, you could use acrylic paints, you could water the acrylic paints down, or you could keep them thick, entirely up to you, or you could just use markers, you could use pens, anything at all. I'm going to spray a little bit of water just in a couple of places, and I am just going to start dropping some ink in. And you could use copy paper or tissue paper, just depending on what you want. Use this. You can always make a second booklet from it, or you can just use it as collage. Now obviously you won't have the tape marks here, but you'll get an imprint of them. Try a bit of the tissue as well, just in case there's anything else. The tissue is really good at picking it up, although you could use paper towel, which of course you can go on to use as collage anyway, but for me, this gives me more of what I want. There we go. I'm going to give this a quick dry, and then I'm going to bring the other one up. Now the only thing is, when you dry it, it can start to lift the tape. In fact, I'm going to put this to the side while I do my big sheet, and then we'll see where that takes us. So my paper's still pretty wet. I've not used a dryer on it. I'm just going to take an Inktense block now. You could use Inktense pencil, you could use ordinary pencil. Again, a layer of whatever you want. So the ink tents were getting kind of soft, dipping them in. That's okay, they break, they always break anyway. So again, I'm not concerned about that. I'm not going to put any more wet media on this paper because it's getting pretty saturated. I did just pour what was in there because it turned into a kind of ink because the ink tents had been in it. So I just spread it down. I've spread it around and I've got some quite nice colours, I think. So I'm going to put the dryer on that and then peel these off. The dryer will help take them off. Then I'll come back and I'd quite like to do just a little bit more to this. So I'm about to remove the tapes, but sometimes I see something like this and I think, oh, actually, I quite like this as is. Now, of course, I could leave the tape on, but that's not going to serve me any purpose. So I've taken an image of it. I could then print that image, put it into my sketchbook so that I've got it there for future reference. Or I could print it and use it as collage in the background or whatever. But I'm going to start to try and gently remove these tapes. And I am not going to throw these away because these will act as kind of homemade washi tapes or for collage. So I'm just going to stick them to my table just now. And I might just stick them in my sketchbook meantime, I don't know, I'll see. Sometimes I stick them down onto a plastic sheet and then, excuse me, use them when the time comes. Right, I will focus on this. So I now have my two sheets with the tape pulled off, and some of this tape is absolutely fabulous, so I will definitely be using that. That's a bonus. Right, so choice to be made. You can decorate further at this point or do the cutting, the folding and then decorate. So I'm going to treat each slightly differently. I'm going to do the folding with this. Now this is going to have a lot of white on it because obviously it's a thick tape. A piece of paper this size might be better with either fewer pieces or with a narrower washi tape, but I still think it's going to make something of interest that can be worked with as a little sketchbook journal. The big one I'm going to do slightly differently. I'm going to journal on this. But what I'm going to do is, you know, I could fold it up, cut it into shape and then journal. But what I'm going to do instead is, if you like hidden journaling, this is quite a good way to do this, because I'm going to journal up and down these lines and it will then be folded and cut and it will be hard to make out what's been written. So, you know, as hidden journaling goes, this is one way to do it. I'm going to do the writing quite big because otherwise it's going to take me forever to kind of fill these up. So I'm going to do it quite big, but I'm also going to do the kind of asemic type writing. I'll be writing words in terms of there'll be words in my head, but they won't necessarily show as words. Clear words here, just another way of hidden journaling. So between the asemic writing and the folding, cutting of the paper, or cutting, folding of the paper, then nobody's going to be able to work out what I've written here. So I'm going to do that because I want you to see the end effect of it. Whew. Right, So in each space I wrote 2 lines one way and then I turned it upside down, and now I think between it being a semic writing and writing over and over and then upside down and flipping it round, I don't think anybody's going to make out what's in here. All good stuff. I missed a line, so I'm going to go back and finish that one. We've got 2 lines of writing there, so we will do one more line. Right, line wasn't quite long enough, so I just finish it off elsewhere. So I am now going to cut these. I'll demonstrate on this. This is actually thickened up nicely. It's funny how when paper has been wet and has paint on it, a little bit tacky in places just with the masking tape, but that's just because it was so thick. So what you can do, I'm going to leave a link to a video where I made an actual zine, i.e. a little piece of self-published, and by self-published I just mean photocopied, made it into a little kind of booklet thing, and I sent that out to people. So I'll leave a link to that just in case you want to see how I did that, because that to me was a zine. But as I say, many people are using this as and calling it a zine journal without actually publishing. But gosh, as I also say, that's getting pedantic. So this could be decorated now, but this particular one I think I'll leave till later. We'll just do the folds and the cuts. So with this one, it doesn't matter where you start, but we're going to fold it short side to short side. You could iron your paper before you start to do this, just to get any wrinkles out. I know I've got a couple of wrinkles in this, but I'm not going to worry. So cut my corner to corner, bring it along and try a nice fold in it. And I'll just use that. Then, just turning it, because I fold from this way, so I'm going to fold to here. Again, as I said last time, you could open it up and fold into the middle. I just find I get it a little bit neater by doing it this way. So again, edge to edge, corner to corner, as best as possible. Fold. Still getting some smudges there, must still be a little bit damp or there's stuff on here. Doesn't matter, just all adds to the interest. I'll flip that over. Again, edge to edge, corner to corner. So again, we've got the kind of 4 panels, 3 folds, 4 panels. So next time we're going to just do 1 fold, and that's simply long edge to long edge. Edge to edge, corner to corner, as best as possible. If you were going to do this as a zine, i.e. something that you then go on to photocopy to send out to people, I've found that it's best to do the design before you do the folding. So I actually have a little template now, and I know what's going to be my front page, what's going to be my back page. If I can link that, I will, but you'll certainly see it in that previous video. That previous video might mention a group that I used to be in, you know, a while back. It doesn't exist now, so just to say that that's the case. I'm just going to go over my lines, just fold them again, just in the kind of opposite direction. Right, so now with this one, whereas the one I did last week we were cutting, you know, so far along, with this one what we will actually want to do is to cut in the middle here. So if you have this piece of paper horizontally, we're going to cut from this point here to this point here. So in other words, it's across the two middle panels, and the easiest way to do that is just to fold that like that and cut along, be it with rotary. You could literally tear it, you might not get a terribly neat line. This is the point where it's worth really pressing down that middle section. So we've got a nice crisp line there. So I'm just going to get scissors, you know, you can double it over so that you're cutting both at once, and if it's been folded more or less correctly, you should end up in the same point on each side. Okay, so we've got it horizontally, we're folding it in half, turning and cutting these two middle panels. I just like to fold it like that, and I can sometimes get a better idea of bang in the middle, but if we're slightly off, there's ways of sorting it. So you open that and we have this, and I always think it's like a frog's mouth, so, but of course we want to flip it over this side. Okay. Because I creased it so far that way, I just need to crease it a bit this way. So we've got this, we push it together, and hey presto, we have our book. Now you can see there it sticks out a little bit, it doesn't matter. We can glue these pages together and then take a slither off there, or you can make that your middle page. That then goes to the back. Again, you're still going to get little bits. It's very difficult to get it bang on, but I'm just going to neaten up the lines just by folding them, because sometimes just going over them just helps it sit in place that little bit better. Now you can choose to glue this. You could glue certain bits of it. I've made them before, and I'll link a video. You can glue, you know, just along the bottom bit and make that into a pocket. So there's lots of different choices. You could glue these bottom bits and have a kind of almost a double pocket there, even though you fold it. So lots of choices to be made. I think I'm going to get the glue stick and just glue this together. Sometimes that helps to pull it in a little bit. The other thing that I've done sometimes is to just slice down the middle and then pull it in, so you can take a little bit out, but you know, I think this will be fine like this. So I'm going to get my glue stick, decide what you want as your front, what you want elsewhere. If I'm designing a zine, I usually always make this my front page. That's just the way I do it, but you know, there's no right or wrong. Glue stick. So when gluing, in some ways it's best to have something that's not going to be, you want something that gives you a bit of flexibility so that you can move it, you know. So if you use a tape, which I have done, it doesn't always give you the flexibility, so something like a glue stick for this is quite good. Now so long as you are pretty quick in sticking it together, you can get away with gluing the whole thing at this stage. But you might just find it gets a little bit sticky in places if the wrong pages touch each other. But we'll go for it. So I'll just flip this way, push it in, and there we have it. And you can manoeuvre it a little bit to try and get just a better fit if you think it's needed. I think that's going to be not too shabby at all. So that's actually helped bring it together. I really don't have any overhang there, maybe a tiny bit there, but you know, that could easily be sliced. Of course, we want to make sure it's fully glued down. Now at this point, if I said, oh, I like that as my outside page, I could flip it, but I'm going to keep it this way. So I'm now going to cut the bigger one. I'll do that off camera, but I'm going to do it in exactly the same way. It's just, you know, bigger. I could come in and actually start to stick some of these down, and I might actually do that, but we'll see in a minute. I'll get this other one cut first. And here's all the handmade washi tape. Yummy, yummy, yummy. It looks superb, even like that. And there we have the bigger book as well. Now, because I knew beforehand where my front page was likely to be, because I tend to follow the same sort of format all the time, I could have anticipated that and not written on this section. But actually, I quite like the idea that the writing continues from the very front page across these and all the way through. But you know what it means is if you were creating something like this, it basically gives you a front page, a double spread, a double spread, a double spread, and a back page. And you could make a lot of these, just as with the little book I made last week. Make a lot of these, you've got some colour on it, you've got a jumping off point, and just take it from there. Now I think I'm just going to do a little bit more work on this just to finish it off, just to make that part of this video. And all I'm going to do is take some marker pens. I've got some Tombos here, and I'm just going to basically design in here. You could write words, you know, we could write something down that, or just put a design on it. I might put a statement or something on there just as to what this relates to, so I'll do that now. Right, okay, I'm not going to fib, I just didn't like the way that was going, the way I decorated it. So all I did was I brought back the washi tape as is, and just filled in the gaps with that. And I think for me that's better. There's a bit of kind of design going on there. It's nothing startling, but it gives you an idea of where you could take these things. Yet the cover I just did not like, and even when I did that, really didn't. So at least with the way this one's shaped up, I do like the hidden journaling through it. I like some of the design aspects. Can still see the traces of the wax crayon. There's still some bits of the Stabilo woodies as well, which is good. Actually, I would quite like to introduce a bit of that colour. Might do that, not today. But yeah, I would quite like to put a title on this, just in here. I'm not going to do it just now because having started that, that's kind of put me off because I kind of felt that didn't go according to plan. I might come back in and put a bit of colour around these. Fortunately, the tape was still sticky enough that in most cases it just stuck right down. But I hope that's given you an idea of how to use that particular style of taking one sheet of paper and folding it in a way that gives you a little booklet, and obviously depending on the size of paper you can get something quite different. So this sheet of paper was a quarter of the size, so the A4 was a quarter of A2, which this was, and as you'll see this still ends up as a quarter. So thanks for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed it. Do take care. Bye for now.